what we're seeing from the left, or what I've seen from the left at least online since the Cuban people have begun to rise up against their government, is I've seen 3 lies from the left. Shocker, I know. 3 lies from the left about Cuba and the result of the communist regime in Cuba. The 3 lies are education, healthcare, and economy. So I want to quickly talk about some thoughts that I had on all of this. So the literacy programs in Cuba are lauded by leftists in our country as being a positive result of communism. This is obviously BS. There is no positive result of communism, but it's also easily debunked if you look at the actual data, if you look at the numbers about literacy compared to nations that are equitable to Cuba but do not have communist governments. So what I'm talking about is Chile, Barbados, Costa Rica. These are Cuba's neighbors that do not have communist regimes in charge of them. And when it comes to literacy, they rank higher or at least equal to Cuba's literacy rate. And they didn't need a communist regime to get there. And this is something else. I hear Bernie Sanders, by the way, was one who praised, he's not doing it today, to my knowledge at least, but at least in the past, he's praised Cuba's literacy rate. Well, before the Castro regime came into power, Cuba had a 78% literacy rate. So it's not like communism took it from 0% to 100%. 78% was what the literacy rate was prior to the Castros. But it's funny that the radical leftists in our country never want to mention that. The other point of this is the purpose of Cuba's literacy programs is, and always has been communist indoctrination. Children that are sent to school for free, as Bernie Sanders likes to laud, children that are sent to school for free in Cuba are done so with the intent of being indoctrinated. They are taught from a very early age about communism in a positive light. They're taught about their government's communism. And this was always the intention. Fidel Castro actually said revolution and education are the same thing. Che Guevara said to build communism, a new man must be created. Society as a whole must become a huge school. So this was the intention of Cuba's literacy program. Anybody who's read even a speck of history knows this. So when your child is in school in Cuba, if you as a parent violate this indoctrination, if you teach your child anything different than the positive communist brainwashing that they hear in school, then you can be sent to prison. This is what Cuba's literacy program is. It's indoctrination. By the way, all universities or higher education school, meaning like technical or vocation schools, are run by Cuba's Ministry of Higher Education. And the Ministry of Higher Education is responsible not only for managing the schools and regulating teachers and curricula, et cetera, et cetera. They also, their job also is to ensure that the schools are in line with the government's standards on teaching communism to children. In fact, in order for the children to actually get acceptance into these institutes of higher education in Cuba, they have to be cleared by what's called the Committee for the Defense of the Revolution. Do you know what that is? That means that students have to have proven during grade school and elementary school that they understand and appreciate and stand for the communist beliefs they were taught in school. And if they don't prove that they're good little communists, then they're not allowed to further their free education. So much for free education. You don't hear this from AOC or from Bernie Sanders or from any other leftist who is praising this education system, this literacy program in Cuba. Same with the healthcare system. So the healthcare system is something that Bernie Sanders, again, and these leftists, these democratic socialists in the United States are constantly praising Cuba's healthcare system. But the truth is, this isn't just a free healthcare system. First of all, you have no other option. So it's not just a free for those who can't afford private. No. This is a two-tiered system. You have no other option except the government system. Elites actually fly to other nations for quality care, but the sorry people at home, the citizens of Cuba, they're forced to face terrible conditions or else forego medical care altogether. Yesterday, I talked about this just a little bit, about some of the conditions that were brought to light by a whistleblower from one of Cuba's hospitals, where if you were admitted to this hospital, you have to bring your own light bulbs, bring your own blankets. The instruments that are used for surgery were rusty. All of this is controlled by the government, which means if you want medical care, you have to fall in line with the communist government of Cuba, or else they have power over denying you care. Can you imagine wanting that here in the United States or praising that? A government bureaucrat in charge of your healthcare? Horrifying. And then we have the economy in Cuba. And this is interesting because in the time that Cuba has been under communist rule, its neighbors, Cuba's neighbors have seen just incredible economic growth, but Cuba has not. Well, why? Well, because Cuba is communist and the nations that have seen incredible economic growth are capitalist free market systems. So Heritage Foundation has what they call an index of economic freedom that, well, I mean, it's self-explanatory. It grades the economic freedom of each nation, and they give Cuba just 28.1 out of 100. This is a very, very, very low score. And this is what they say. Heritage says, the state owns most means of production. There's practically no separation between the judiciary, the National Assembly, and the Communist Party, which can appoint or remove judges at any time. Corruption is a serious problem that remains unaddressed. Widespread illegality permeates both Cuba's limited private enterprises and the vast state-controlled economy. State-owned enterprises significantly distort the economy. Access to credit for private sector activity is severely impeded by the shallow financial market. Despite a decade of incremental changes, the state remains firmly in control. End quote. So interesting because that's under communist rule, this utopia that the left tells us that people should want because of the benefits that come with socialism. In fact, Cuba's score on the economic freedom scale, according to Heritage, only exceeds the score of Venezuela. We know what's been happening in Venezuela. They are a complete failed state after being the richest nation in the Southern Hemisphere. Cuba and Venezuela, worldwide, they're higher only than North Korea on the economic freedom index, according to Heritage. So if you want to compare for a second, Heritage's description of Cuba with that of Chile, then Chile, by the way, is the second highest ranked nation for economic freedom in the Americas. It's 75.2 out of 100. And this is why, according to Heritage, they've secured interest in real property are recognized and generally enforced, and expropriation is rare. There's a recognized and generally reliable system for regarding mortgages and other forms of liens. The judiciary is independent, and the courts are generally competent in their enforcement of property and contractual rights and free from political interference. Market-oriented policies, facilitated by a sound and transparent investment framework, have attracted significant foreign investment. The relatively competitive financial sector is open and resilient, offering a wide range of services. The exchange rate has been allowed to adjust flexibly without intervention. So this is interesting when we see these lies debunked about the healthcare system in Cuba, the education system in Cuba, and the economic prosperity of Cuba. And this, of course, doesn't take into account things like basic freedom, the arrest of dissidents, imprisoning, and sometimes death, the violation of basic human rights the communists have inflicted on the citizens of Cuba, the starvation versus the prosperity of capitalist nations, the religious freedom, the attacks on religious freedom, the lack of self-determination, et cetera, et cetera. Never let the leftists tell us that what is in Cuba should be exported here. All you have to do is go to South Florida to see people who have escaped, Cuban Americans now, who have escaped the communist dictatorship of Cuba, to tell you how awful it is.
Hi, before you go, let me talk to you about something. As you know, I've been censored on Facebook and YouTube, so I partnered with locals to create a censorship-free community. I also just launched my show, and I have a lot of exciting new things coming up that I want to make sure I can share with you and get your input on. I'm going to be sharing behind-the-scenes looks of my set and my show prep, and I get a lot of questions about my hair and makeup routines, my research process, and so much more. So I'll give you sneak peeks of all of that. I'll also be doing exclusive segments of my show just for Locals VIPs. All of my interviews will be shared on Locals for VIPs to watch as well. I'll be taking questions directly from VIPs for the video mailbag in my show, and you'll get the episodes free from ads. Who doesn't love that? Not to mention, I'll keep doing everything that you've already come to love. Ask me questions for live Q&As. Let's talk about your favorite books, what yummy vegan food I'm eating for lunch, and what ridiculous headlines I'm reading today. You can do all of that and more, but only if you are a Liz Wheeler Show VIP on Locals. The monthly subscription is $9 a month, but if you really want a good deal, we have an annual subscription for just $72. That's 4 months free. 4 months. So join me on Locals as a VIP. I'll see you over there.